now recognize the distinguished gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman, for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Mr. Chairman, the world cannot generate its needed power from perfect sources. Whether it is coal or oil or nuclear, we can argue about which is better or worse, and greenhouse gases versus nitric oxide, et cetera. And so we've debated that. And there seems to be a view that when we're dealing with these multinational lending agencies, that nuclear power should be eligible to get these loans. It has some problems, but so does almost every other source of power. But there is one unique problem that only nuclear has, and that is the risk of nuclear proliferation. One nuclear bomb can ruin your whole day. I am the former chair of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee that dealt with non-proliferation issues. And we want to make sure that when countries have nuclear power, that it is not a cover, as it is in Iran, for a nuclear weapons program. And that is why the George W. Bush administration developed the gold standard, what we want a country to do to show us that they're looking at their nuclear program for power and not for nuclear proliferation. And that calls for them to agree to sign and ratify the additional protocol, which is part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty and allows the IAEA to do the necessary inspections. It also requires that they agree not to reprocess, since reprocessing is a way that they can develop nuclear bomb fuel. So this is not an attempt to derail nuclear power. We know it works because it works for the United Arab Emirates, and they're generating nuclear power right now. They agreed to this gold standard, and if countries are asking us to help finance their nuclear program, the least they could do is assure us that they're not developing nuclear weapons. It is, I think, would impress the political scientists of 1945 that we've come this long while keeping the number of nuclear weapon states to a relatively small number. And I hope that we continue to do that. Countries like, a host of countries have talked about developing nuclear weapons, and we should convince them not to do so, and we certainly shouldn't finance anything that moves them in that direction. So I hope to have bipartisan support for this amendment, and unless somebody has a question to ask me that I could yield to them, I will yield back to the chair.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlewoman from Missouri.
I thank the chairman, and I move to strike the last word. I appreciate my friend Mr. Sherman's amendment, but I must oppose it. While I understand the gentleman's intent, his amendment is truly not necessary, Mr. Chairman. After the adoption of Mr. Foster's amendment earlier today, we made perfectly explicitly clear that Treasury would be advocating for nuclear technologies that meet or exceed Western standards. These standards, of course, include important safety precautions. It's also the case that the U.S. is the largest shareholder at the World Bank and other multilateral development banks, and Treasury will not be supporting projects that pose a non-proliferation risk. I am concerned that this amendment would simply serve, frankly, as an obstacle to safe nuclear projects by throwing up unnecessary conditions, and we've already seen too much of this in the nuclear field. For this reason, Mr. Chairman, I must...
Will the gentlelady yield?
I will yield briefly, but we're trying to move things along, Mr.
Mr. Foster's amendment dealt with safety standards. Iran is developing a nuclear weapon, and they haven't had a safety problem. They have a kill America and kill Israel problem. And this amendment deals with something entirely different than Foster. It deals with preventing countries from safely and carefully developing the weapons to kill millions of people. I suggest we not finance that. I yield back.
I reclaim my time, and again, the language in the underlying bill, let me be very clear, is the result of careful negotiations with the Treasury Department, including officials from the previous administration, and its focus is nuclear energy and prohibitions that currently apply to nuclear financing at the multilateral development banks. I am concerned again that this amendment would simply serve as an obstacle to safe nuclear projects by throwing up unnecessary conditions. We've already seen too much of it in the nuclear field, and for this reason, I will say, Mr. Chairman, again, I urge my colleagues to oppose the gentleman's amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Who else seeks a recognition on Mr. Sherman's amendment? The gentlewoman from California, and the gentlewoman from California is recognized, and she's yielding time to Mr. Sherman.
Thank you.
To say that this bill has gone through Treasury and therefore will not be a nuclear proliferation problem ignores the fact that nobody at Treasury is qualified to deal with nuclear proliferation. We leave that to state. They're the ones with the expertise to make sure that our tax dollars are not going to help a country develop nuclear weapons that could kill millions of Americans. There is nothing in the underlying bill that prevents that. There's nothing in the Foster Amendment that prevents that. This bill is the work of those who focus on energy and economics, and energy and economics are important, but so is non-proliferation. This is hardly an obstacle to a country that wants to develop nuclear weapons for energy. It is an obstacle. It is an obstacle for a country that wants to develop a nuclear program.
Well, the gentlelady yield.
A nuclear program as a cover for developing nuclear weapons, which is exactly what Iran is doing now. And I would hope that the gentlelady from Missouri could briefly address us if the gentlelady from California yields her time.
It's
Gentlelady requesting time?
Yes.
I yield to the gentlelady.
Thank you. I appreciate Ms. Waters very much for the time. I'd like to remind my good friend, Mr. Sherman, that we have export controls, very explicit export controls on any kind of nuclear technology at all. And let me finish, sir. And these standards, of course, include important safety precautions. It is also the case that the U.S. is the largest shareholder at the World Bank and other multilateral development banks, and Treasury will not be supporting projects that pose a non-proliferation risk. And we have
Reclaiming my time.
And we have the export
Reclaiming my time.
in place.
Yes.
California.
The fact that we have export controls does nothing if they decide to go to China or France for the nuclear program. So the reactor can be designed in Beijing or Paris. Safety standards mean it's not going to blow up if they don't want it to blow up. Non-proliferation means it's a cover for developing a nuclear weapons program. And to say that a bill constructed by those who want to promote nuclear power for economic reasons is not going to lead to millions of unwanted deaths in the United States or elsewhere because we allow Turkey, or we allow Iraq, or we allow Brazil, or we allow Argentina to use our money to build nuclear weapons with French technology, with Chinese technology and our money, to say that this bill will not do that absent these limitations, I don't think reflects a focus from a non-proliferation position. It may be fine with Treasury. There's nothing in this bill that wouldn't absolutely freak out the whole non-proliferation community. And I will
Could I
Reclaiming-
ask the gentlelady for?
Reclaiming my time, I yield to the gentlelady.
Thank you very much, Ms. Waters. And very briefly, and I don't want to belabor the point, but the Foster Amendment, I really do believe addresses that, and it makes it very clear that we are using U.S. technologies, not Chinese, not Iranian, not Iraq, not any others. It is specifically using U.S. technologies. So I
Reclaiming my time, I yield to
I
the
yield back.
gentleman from California.
Whether it's U.S. technology or French technology, we build it, they use it for electric power, and then the next day, they stop the IAE inspections. The next day, they start a breeder reactor program. The next day, they start reprocessing. And the day after that, the world has another nuclear state financed by the international organizations where it's more our money than anyone else. Lenin said that they'd hang us and we'd give them the rope on credit. Hanging is so old-fashioned. Now, instead of rope to hang a few capitalists, we're talking about a nuclear weapon that can kill them by the millions. And it'll be American dollars that start off with the energy project
Gentlewoman's
and end
time
up
has
with
expired.
the nuclear weapon. I yield back.